Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today as we introduce the latest piece of technology to join the digital lineup here at Alcom Printing Group. I'm very grateful to be joined today by Brett Rickey and Ashley Gorfine from the Konica Minolta team, and they're going to really get into the details around the press. But I thought I would spend the first couple of moments just telling you a little bit of the background and how we landed here. And let me just apologize up front, because I can see myself in multiple screens here, and I'm enamored by the technology around me. And there's also a little bit of delay in my earphones, so if it stumbles me, forgive me. So the Konica Minolta, this is an AccurioJet KM1E. This is an LED UV inkjet piece of technology. The interesting part about this for us is that our senior management have really vetted every piece of technology in this space over quite a period of time to make sure that we landed at the right decision here prior to, of course, bringing this and putting it on the floor. There's a lot of reasons why we landed here, and I'll tell you a little bit about it before we get into the actual demo. This piece of technology is perfect for us as an organization because it really complements many of the core competencies that we have here at Alcom. For example, we're a sheet-fed commercial printer, right? One thing. And this really complements that. This particular unit allows for, excuse me, lost my earpiece, a mid-size sheet format, right? So, you know, digital printing has really evolved from the days of the limited sheet sizes, and we're seeing more and more pieces of equipment that have developed that, thanks Brett, that have developed that allow for 23 by 29 mid-size sheets, as we call them. So what that does is it allows us to expand from the traditional press room. You know, when we're looking to run high quality, short run pieces, implement variable data, which we'll touch on a little bit later, this piece of technology allows us to do that. The quality that comes off the KM is the best that I've seen in the digital space, and you're going to get to see a little bit about that later on. So it complements those sheet-fed offerings very, very nicely. We're also a wide format printer. I don't know if you know that, but if you don't, now you do. So we do a fair amount of wide format work here at Alcom as well. And what's interesting about this press, again, it's got the high quality, the offset quality output, but it's incredibly flexible. And what I mean by that is that this press has unmatched substrate compatibility. So not only can it run traditional offset sheets, but it can also run synthetics. It can run vinyls. It can run canvas. It can run, I guess, just about anything you can put through it. Now, Brett's going to correct me on that because I'm sure it's not just about everything. But I like to say that it does because it sounds amazing. But nonetheless, when you're running a project that maybe you would traditionally consider running in a wide format environment, right, now you have additional solutions. So if it's a turnaround time, if it's a flexibility time, if it's a quality thing, we can address a lot of those circumstances right here in this room with this piece of equipment. We also process a fair amount of direct mail here at Alcom. It's one of our core competencies, and where this comes into play there is really limitless. You know, direct marketing today is evolving. I think we all know that, and as organizations, we have to adapt in order to be effective. How do we do that? So we see more and more pieces that come in today where clients are really, really putting the data that they have to work. Data is king, and if you use it properly, you can create very, very effective marketing campaigns through direct mail and traditional channels with the KM, for example. This particular press is geared for very, very complex variable data files. So if you want to output sheet to sheet to sheet that go far beyond the traditional, hey, Sean, and really get into personalized, targeted, unique experiences, you can do that with a piece of equipment like the KM. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier that it is an LED UV inkjet press. What does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things, but for me, what it means is you're able to produce incredible precision color in a digital environment, right? Like nowadays, more and more people are using digital. It's very, it's very, very commonplace, but there's still a fair amount of people that I communicate with throughout a given week, day, that still see digital as, well, it's a sacrifice. Well, we can go digital, but this is a high quality piece. This is a color critical piece. I am not afraid in that instance with a press like the KM. And Brett's going to get into some of those particulars about that. But what I will say is, let's say you're running a job and it's a 5-6 color job. You have specific branding requirements around corporate colors. and you need to run Pantone colors. Maybe running short run process matches is challenging in the digital environment, but not with the KM. The KM has the ability to match with accuracy up to 85%, I believe, of the Pantone Plus book. And I believe Brett's going to highlight that, which is a really, really impressive task. So, moving to the digital environment for short run, for targeted mail, there's no sacrifice whatsoever from a quality standpoint. The other thing I'd just like to touch on is, and because it's come up quite a bit, is the idea of aqueous coatings, right? Well, we coat all of our projects. Well, of course you do, and I certainly recommend it under certain scenarios. In a certain environment, I would absolutely recommend the use of aqueous coating. But think about the time prior to aqueous coating. What did we do? As printers, we applied varnishes, we smoked sheets with spray powder, anything that we could do to ease production, to aid drying, to protect that sheet, right? The industry evolved to the next phase, and we started applying an aqueous coating to the sheet. And that solved all those problems. It allowed us to coat and protect sheets. It allowed sheets to come off presses dry and move directly into production. And it provided a protective layer when that job went out into the environment, whether that went out in direct mail or in racks and stands or wherever it would land. Aqueous coating provided some of that protection. So I still love it. I absolutely love it. But again, the industry is changing. Technology such as the KM1, utilizing UV inks, no longer requires the use of an aqueous coating, right? So you need to break free a little bit from traditional thinking when you're considering planning your project for the future. What is that project running on? If it's running on a piece of equipment like the KM, it's not necessary. The LED UV process creates the same result. Well, maybe not the same result. These guys would go as far to tell you that it's a better result, and I'm going to let them explain why. But the reality is when a sheet comes off of this press, and I apologize because I'm a hand talker, when the sheet comes off of this press, it comes off completely dry with all of the protective characteristics of an aqueous coating plus, right? So you're not making a sacrifice by foregoing an aqueous coating. And in some environments, I would say don't do it, but not here. It's not an issue whatsoever. So again, incredibly flexible piece of technology, serves a ton of purposes, right? This is a problem-solving piece of equipment, and we're very, very excited to share it with our customers. So before I get too deep in the weeds, I'm going to introduce Brett Rickey from the Konica Minolta team. And Brett is going to run through a brief presentation about the machine so you can see the technology firsthand. And I would encourage you to please ask questions. If you're watching, you have specific questions about capabilities, about the technology, please drop them in the comments. And when Brett here concludes his presentation, we'll do our best to address all of those questions.
On it. So offset press feeder, right? Designed to run from 17 by 22 all the way up to 23 by 29. We run it at 3,000 an hour, remember? It is an offset press feeder system. It picks up a sheet with a sucker box, moves it down that feed table into a headstop and a mechanical side guide. Let me just run through the paper one more time. 50-pound offset, all the way up to 24-point board through this press, and up to 18-point we can automatic flex or perfect inside this press. No need for turning that sheet over and running it back through. We'll do that automatically inside the press. And remember, we don't really care about grain direction all the way up to 18-point. And those synthetics that we can run from Tyvek and PVCs and Teslans run through this same standard feeder for you. Very easy to switch over paper from one paper stock to another because we have a paper stock library that the operator builds, and they can load paper in, select the stock. That stock selection that they have has about 95% of the settings in it already. So the operator typically selects that stock, starts running right away with the press. So let's talk a little bit about when I jet ink directly onto the substrate. Why is that so important? It's because there's no other moving parts inside that press to put ink on paper. What that means for you is consistent quality from sheet to sheet, from run to run, from job to job, from month to month. So good, as a matter of fact, we had one customer just tell us that they get better consistency off of a KM1 than their Epson proofer. So and there's no secret here. Once again, I jet ink directly onto the substrate. So once I jet ink directly onto the substrate, through my inkjet heads, there's 64 of them in the press, by the way. I then cure instantly with LED UV. So this LED UV is great because it is low temperature. It's low power consumption when you compare it to an aqueous-based inkjet system. Because in an aqueous inkjet system, you use big infrared dryers to try and evaporate water off the sheet. This, every drop of ink that I jet onto the substrate, I also cure it onto that substrate. When I cure with the LED UV light, I cure it rock solid to that sheet. So there is no extra dry time. There's no more waiting time. Everything is, I can go directly into finishing with this device. All right. So, I said there's 2.5 enemies to inkjet. Well, the second enemy to inkjet is misfires in the inkjet heads. If all I'm doing is spraying directly onto the substrate, all I have to look for is misfires in our inkjet heads. So in real time, we actually look for misfires happening, and we actually correct for them on the fly. So you'll see this sheet here. This is a nozzle check chart that's inserted every 200 to 500 sheets. This is with our camera system, it is reading every nozzle in the whole entire inkjet system. And if it sees a misfire happening, like in the magenta heads here, it automatically corrects for that misfire by throwing bigger droplet sizes in neighboring jets around where that misfire is happening to fill in the gap. So it will keep on doing that throughout the press run, throughout a press day. The operator does not have to stop the press in order to do anything to fix this issue. The press will automatically fix itself and continue to fix itself for you without any degradation in quality, without any degradation in consistency of the print for you. So what's the half enemy to inkjet? So I said there's 2.5. The half enemy to inkjet is actually an aqueous problem, not a UV problem. Because in an aqueous inkjet system, because air dries the ink, or heat, air and heat, both, you have to worry about how long the heads have stayed open. You have to worry about ink drying out inside the heads and causing misfires and things. With us, we don't have to worry about any of that because as long as I don't hit my ink with UV light, I don't cure my ink, right? So as soon as I hit it with UV light, it's instantly cure, and so it's a much better system in that regard. The last thing I'll say is you've probably seen toner-based products where you have to do calibrations every so often on a toner-based product. On this product, we don't even have a calibration routine. That quality and consistency, because I'm jetting ink directly onto substrate, I don't have to worry about trying to make sure that the press is all in alignment. We hit G7 typically the first sheet off of this press when it's installed, but more importantly to your customers is we maintain G7 over long periods of time because that jetting ink directly onto substrate for you. Now, if the sheet is being perfected, the sheet will come down into the reverse perfecting cylinder. A swing arm gripper comes down and grabs that sheet and inserts it in between two other sheets on that big triple cylinder there. So we always maintain rated speed, 3,000 sides per hour to the press. No matter what size, what type of stock, what weight of stock that it is, we run at one speed and one speed only on this press. So you can see those sheets coming down that feed table and being pulled over that side guide. You can also see the UV light turning on when we're curing sheets for you. So it's interesting because when we built this press, we built it with a very wide color gamut. The reason we built it with such a wide gamut is because we wanted to hit 85% of the Pantone Plus library within a 3 delta E. We're doing that. We're achieving that and a little bit more today. But look at this print here. This print is 4-color process. It takes a lot of other engines, 6 or 7 colors to get this vibrancy and this color out of what we're getting out of a 4-color process. That means expanded applications for you without having to add additional costs in going above 4 colors. So very, very important. So the other thing that I wanted to point out to you is, remember I said 85% of that Pantone Plus library we can hit within a 3 delta E? Well, what if your flavor of Pantone number 185 is just a little bit different than what the book is, right? Have you ever run into this? So what we can do is we can print out this chart. This chart has patches of different amounts of CMYK. The patch in the very center of this chart is what we think Pantone 185 should be. But if you say, well, I really like the patch over here better, that's closer to what I want, all I've got to do is click that patch, lock it in, and every time you print Pantone 185, it's going to print that version of Pantone 185 for you very, very consistently. Once again, for you. Now, the operator, much like an offset press, has full control over this press. He can make adjustments on the feeder side of things. He can make adjustments over here on the delivery side. So with this, the operator can make adjustments to the amount of vacuum on the feed table, the amount of side guide force, other things like that to make sure that we can get all those sheets going through the press very, very reliably. So, so the operator can even access the RIP here. Now, with our RIP system, we are a PDF print engine. We print PDFs natively. And we have lots and lots of customers doing millions of variable data pieces through our press. We do something very, very different than most. Because we're a PDF print engine, we don't have to rip the whole file before we start printing. We only have to rip about 30 seconds of the job. We'll start printing that job. 10,000 records, 50,000 records, whatever the case may be. We'll start printing. We'll keep on printing and keep on going. And we'll just continually to feed data down to that press. The RIP is built with variable data in mind. So we'll come over here to the delivery. So you'll notice there's 2 different delivery areas. So I can deliver sheets into a top tray, like are becoming now, or most of the time I'll deliver them into the delivery stacker. This stacker holds up to 33 inches of stock. I can feed 36 inches of stock through the press. And so, so we can stack a lot of output onto this as well for you. So the stacker has tamper arms and side guides to make sure that stack is nice and neat to take it to bindery for you. So you can see these sheets coming out. We print them out of the top tray. It's a little bit easier to see sheets coming off onto the top tray for you. And this is, once again, printing. These are single-sided, so they're printing at 3,000 an hour or 6,000 posters an hour coming off of this press. Remember, each one could be different. So a couple other things that I wanted to point out to you is the ink tank system. So we hold 25 liters of ink in these ink tanks. The ink comes in 5-liter bags. It's kind of nice because the ink tanks are all locked. If an operator needs to put a bag of ink in, he just scans that bag of ink with the barcode. The ink tank opens up corresponding to that color. He puts the ink into the ink tank. And then we take that ink and we pump it into 2 different sub-tanks up in the press for you. So The other thing, there's some componentry behind the press. I won't go into all of it, but it's things like blower cabinets and a small chiller unit to chill the UV lamps, and some power conditioning. So I hope you've seen today how versatile the press is. I hope you've seen today the different maybe substrates, the different quality that you can get, the excellent quality you can get from first printout to last printout. If I look at this first sheet and I look at the sheets that we printed, 10, 15 minutes ago, you'll notice that those sheets look identical to you, right? And I could print the 1000th sheet and I could show you this. So here we're showing you printing into the stacking unit, where you can see the tamper arm moving. You see us stacking that stack really nice and neat. So with that, I think I'll start to take some questions, see if there's any questions out there. Question, do you need to add UV to direct mail to prevent scuffing? So that's the great news here, is because our ink is so durable on the page, we send millions upon millions of mail pieces a week coming off of our press that never have to be coated. And they make it through the mail system with no scuffing, with no rubbing, with no ink pull off on that sheet, and no rejects. And the reason, because that ink is, that our UV ink is much like a UV coating, right? And so that ink is that durable on the page that we don't have to worry about that. Let's see, there's a couple other questions that came in. Yeah, can I run label stocks through this press? Yeah, we actually have several customers running different types of label stocks through the press. We can not only run label stocks, but remember that vinyl label with paper backer, we can run Tyvek through the press. We can run Teslin and PVC. We can run styrenes. We have customers running hundreds of thousands of sheets of styrene for backlit signage through this press. All of those synthetics are very, very easy for us to run as well too. Great question. Can KM1 print on foil? So yes, the new KM1E, we've upgraded the sensor system in this press, so we can print on foil boards. We can print on metallic boards, gold foil. We can even print on absolutely clear substrates. So substrates that are clear, we can run through this press as well too. I love this question. So how many KM1s can one operator run? Well, if you think about the offset press environment, you usually have two operators running one offset press. We have installations today where we have three presses, one operator. So one operator can run all three presses and still have time to do other things, get files ready and prepped and ready to go. What is the advantage of the press when I have variable data mailing job? Yeah, that's a great question. So there's really several advantages. Number one is I don't have to post-coat that sheet off of a variable data job, right? I don't have to do any sort of UV coating. Number two is because I built my RIP system to handle complex variable data, now I can do image swap outs, and I can tailor that message even more than just name and address or some other text. I can do variable image swap outs to make that piece very, very customized. And that's so important in today's environment. And number three is I can also not just do customized variable data printing, but now I can do versioning. And what do I mean by versioning? Instead of running 10,000 of one flyer or one booklet, now I can run 1,000 booklets, 10 different booklets, 1,000 each, that will give me different different versions of that booklet. So I may change some of the covers, or I may change something inside of that version to make it more customized, but not one-to-one customized. Yeah, can the press run magnetic stock? Yes, so we just actually tested that, and we can run magnets to the press. And so that's really great. Somebody asked a question about durability of UV ink. And once again, the ink on this page is as durable as a UV coating. We've actually gone to RIT and done studies, and in those studies, they found that through Sutherland or Tabor testing, that we can pass those tests with flying colors. What does that mean for you? That means if I'm doing a packaging application or a direct mail piece, I'm guaranteed that ink is not going to rub off on a paper substrate. So, this is a great question. What's the single biggest advantage of the inkjet technology over litho or toner? So there's several advantages, but in my opinion, I come from a heritage of printing, and when I show sheets to my father, who ran a 40-inch press all of his life, and I say, this first sheet was good, right? He still does not understand how we could do that. The first sheet off of this press, as you saw when we were printing today, first sheet off is good. The 1000 sheet is good as well too. And so that's what's really the key advantage. There's no make ready time. There's no make ready waste. There's no plates. There's nothing in the setup process. I click print and I go with this. Can the ink withstand outside weather conditions? So the ink can stand up under water, and we've tested that through some chamber testing. So it passes that with flying colors. With fade resistance, it does have some fade resistance to it, and we've done some testing. We certainly want to share some of the results of the tests that we did, and then some of our folks in China did. We can share that testing with you. Man, lots of great questions today. So do you see more customers utilizing the KM for print on demand? For sure. We've seen this happen not just in the pandemic era, although that it probably exacerbated things a little bit. But run lengths are coming down, right? People aren't ordering as much of a product anymore. And what the key advantage of this UV inkjet technology is that I don't have to order 10,000 books, right, at a time. I can order 1,000 books at a time if that's what my quantities are. I can even do some print on demand where, hey, my book run for this week is 50, and next week it's 5,000, and next week it's 30, right? I can do whatever I want from a print on demand experience. And we have some customers that are doing lights out production, where orders roll in and roll right to the machine, and the operator, all they've got to do is release those jobs as they come in. How much paper waste is needed to make ready to press? Well, I would say 0, but really it's 1 or 2 sheets. Is typically what people will run a proof, make sure that everybody signs off on the proof, and then they're into production. Typically, there isn't any waste, not the 300 to 500 sheets, which you're typically used to on an offset press.
I'm unmuted. Yeah, just wanted to say thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to watch this live. I apologize for some of those technical difficulties in the early section of the webinar. We're definitely going to have this available recorded for anybody that wants to digest it a little bit later. So if you're watching it later, thank you too. And the other side of the coin of the last thing I really wanted to say was this. We love questions here. So if you come up with questions after this that, I wish I would have thought about it, please reach out to someone on our team. If you have questions, whether this press has capabilities that will add value to what you are doing today, reach out to us. We're happy to answer those questions. If you're curious if print on demand works for, like, maybe you're not involved in print on demand, you like an evaluation to determine if that makes sense for you and your organization, we would love to talk with you to find out if it's a good fit. So again, thank you guys very much for joining us today. We appreciate your patience with the technical difficulties. Have a great day. Have a good weekend. Thanks, everyone.